What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of SSPN Live. I'm Jude. That's Ethan. We're here to talk some Spurs basketball today. Unfortunately, a tough loss for the Spurs last night, Ethan. It's the late night week. So, for those
Yep.
of you who weren't able to catch up with the game last night, we're the place for you here this week. We'll be here back Friday to recap the doubleheader in LA. But just talking about this one, Ethan, I stayed up late. I did not watch the fourth quarter because I knew at the end of the third quarter that it was going to be over, and I went and got some food right around that time. I wrote it down. They went on an 18-2 run to end the third quarter. It might have even been more than that. But when I left, that's what it was at. And before that on the broadcast, they were like, it's a 16-2 run. And then they scored again. And that was really just like the exclamation point on the end of that run that I think really put the Spurs to bed last night was Dame hitting step backs from 32 feet. And before that, he was pulling up from 30. And it's like when that happens, and then on top of that, you were already on like a 12-2 run. I mean, that really just stamps the momentum in your favor. And that's one way to, put a team to bed, if you will, going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, you said it best. I mean, I was able to watch the first 2.5 quarters before I went to sleep. So I saw all the good stuff. We were talking about it
Hmm.
beforehand. I mean, really, there wasn't that much bad stuff per
Hmm.
se. Like
Right.
like how you said it. It was really Dame Lillard who went 7 of 11 shooting, from 30 plus feet. Simons went 4 for 7. Shaden Sharp went 3 for 4, and Nasir Little went 2 for 2. Like when those guys are shooting that well, I don't care how great your defense is. That's just one of those nights you got to shake their hands. Say, y'all made shots. Like because it looked like our rotations were solid. Our communication was pretty good. And in those first 2.5 quarters, we were pretty much neck and neck with them the
It was a
entire way.
track meet. It was a tie game, 74-74.
It was, and I didn't feel like either team was necessarily playing bad defense either. It just felt like we were both shooting pretty well, running our sets with precision. We looked fluid. Trey Jones looked good, facilitating. Keldon had 20. Sohan went 2 for 2 from 3 point land. So there were a lot of positives. Branham came in doing Malachi things. Same with Jay Rich, who had 11, and then Doug couldn't miss 3 for 3 from 3 point land. Like it was just a really solid game overall. But when you got guys on the other side just making crazy shots, there's just not much you can do about it.
Yeah, when you look at the lineup, I mean, it's just pretty clear. Like we have Jakob, that's really the only veteran on the team, if you want to say by NBA standards. Sure, you could say Keldon is kind of, and Trey they've been playing, but like this is Trey's first year starting, and this is Keldon's second year starting. Where if you
Hmm.
look at the Blazers starting lineup, Jeremy Grant, Yusuf Nurkic, Dame Lillard, Anthony Simons, and Josh Hart, and just talking a little bit more about the Blazers. Obviously, we got to see a lot of Drew Eubanks, who we know and love. Still got his poster up here. Um,
Plus
and he
19.
and he's just developed. I mean, he's gotten even better in Portland. He's the perfect bench big for them. And it was so funny. I don't know if I texted you this. It might have been somebody else, but I was watching the Blazers broadcast, and literally their broadcast was saying they were like unique, special, when talking about him. And I was like, I love it. Like, we're being a little bit over the top here, but this is great. I'm here for it. But it
Yeah.
was just so funny. Like, it was so serious. Like, the way that they were saying it, I couldn't
Yeah.
believe. I was like, they're really out here saying that Drew is like an elite talent. Like, it was just funny because it's Drew. Obviously, he's definitely carved out a path in the league and a role on that team. And like I said, is a great, very serviceable backup center in the league. But
Hmm.
then when you count in Shaden Sharp, who's 19, shoots 8 for 12, has just elite athleticism on top of going 3 for 4 from three. Like when you're and you come into the league with elite athleticism and you're a great shooter, and then on top of that, you're a guard, like he is definitely looking like, obviously you've got Anthony Simons there, who is also just developed into a bucket getter automatically. He was plus 15 last night on 26. Didn't really do much other than that, but it didn't matter because he was just supposed to be that off ball shooter. Um, when you those two guys, like the Blazers are going to be a problem even after Dame is gone. Obviously, they're going to have to figure some things out, but that is going to be a very good backcourt in like 4 years.
Yeah, man. I'm obviously I'm been super high on the Blazers. I'm
Mm-hmm.
surprised they're only 22 and 25. I've only watched a handful of games, but
Mm-hmm.
the amount of talent and also veteran leadership they have on this squad, like they should be better than this. I can't figure out what it is. Maybe they just haven't put it all together. Their chemistry might be
Mm-hmm.
off, but you got, like you said, Eubanks coming in off the bench doing all the dirty work necessary. Gary Payton II just came back, so he's a
You
very
forget about
quality
him.
defender in that backcourt next to either Dame Lillard, Simons, or Shaden Sharp. He really hides any of their deficiencies. They have the youth, they have the athleticism, they have the shooting, and they have
The
wing
West
depth.
is just such a gauntlet, dude.
It
Like I
is.
feel
And
like
that's
this team would probably be better in the East. Obviously, the East has got some good teams this year too, but the fact
like
that this team is 22 and 25, like I feel like 4 years ago they're like a 5 seed, but the parity is just
yeah,
so different now.
Dame Lillard, top 5 point guard. Simons, one of the best young players. Same with Sharp.
Dude.
Nurkic, top 10 center. Jeremy Grant, top 10 3-and-D guy. Like, they have so much talent. I can't figure out why they can't. It just does come
Yeah.
down to what you said. The West is just stacked. But I felt like we held our own for the most part of the night.
Yep.
Um, like I said,
No,
really not that
really
much.
until the end of the third quarter we were neck and neck
Yeah,
with them.
it's really disappointing. I mean, at the end of the day, we're happy,
Right.
but I feel bad for them, because like to have such a great night as far as like minimal mistakes
Mhm.
and execution to also then lose in the manner that you did, it's got to hurt their confidence a little bit. I hope they just shake it off going to the next game tomorrow night and are able to continue in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, even though this one, when you look at the score, it's a 20-point blowout. If you watch it, it's really kind of what after just going when we did that live a while back, we were just like, what do we want to see for like the rest of the season or going into 2023? And it was just being competitive in these games for, the majority of the game. So
Yeah.
they're doing that. Obviously, outmatched and just out experienced. Like you can go down the list. And that's most teams whenever the Spurs are playing against anybody this year. Those are kind of, unless it's like the Rockets or the Hornets, like that's usually going to be the case.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, our man Nick is in the comments though, Ethan. He says Nurk is not a top 10 center,
Mm,
all cap.
I don't know. Well, maybe. Let me think.
I kind of tend to agree with him here. I understand, like, Nurk is very versatile, but there's probably, like, if you go down the list, you could probably
Let's see.
you could name
Jokic,
10.
Embiid. Are we going to classify AD as a center?
Yeah,
Okay.
he basically
AD.
plays center, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
AD, Bam, that's 4. DeMontis, Sabonis, that's
I
5.
feel like
Jared
I'm
Allen.
forgetting. Yeah, I'm forgetting people. I already know it.
Do you think he's better than Jakob? I mean, it's a toss up. I think offensively he might be a little bit better than Jakob,
He's
but
better than Jakob.
defensively he's better than Jakob.
That's what
DeAndre
I'd
Ayton
say.
is he better than DeAndre Ayton?
I guess that's an interesting question this year, just because of with D Book being out, the Suns have had their struggles too.
Yeah. I
But
see JJJ as a
our,
power forward. I guess
yeah,
if you classify him as a center, then
our man
maybe
Rain says Ayton.
Miles Turner. I'd say Nurk's a little
Who
bit
am I
better than Miles
forgetting?
Turner. There's always old Rudy Gobert, but I don't think he's better. I think Nurk is
Ru-
better than Rudy Gobert personally.
at this point, Rudy's kind of just like Jakob.
Valanciunas, I would say yes,
That's
he's
somebody I
better.
was forgetting. Yeah, yeah.
KP, Kristaps Porzingis, is he a power forward still, or is he a center now?
I guess it depends on where. Well, shoot, where are we putting Laurie?
I'd put him as a power forward
Yeah,
personally.
I would. They play him, but he definitely plays center. But I would put him as a 4-2.
I'd say he's better
If
than Vooch. I'd say he's better than
okay,
Clint Capella.
hmm, who's I just about to say?
Robert
Here's the
Williams.
real question: is he better than Walker Kessler though?
Oh, he's had a really good stretch here.
Oh my gosh! Did you see? What was I going to say? It was the Jazz. They have 2 players on their roster that they consider untouchable, and it's like reasonable, like when you look at it this year. But like if you would have told me going into the year, by the trade deadline, the Jazz's 2 untouchable players are going to be Walker Kessler and
Mm.
Larry Markkinen, I would have told you were crazy.
Yeah, dude, they fleeced the Minnesota
Yeah.
Timberwolves
Oh
bad.
my gosh, they knew it was time to blow it up, and shout out to the Cavs because that was just a trade that worked out
Both
worked
ways,
out
yeah.
great for both teams. Yeah, yeah. Eric asks if Nurkic is better than Steven Adams. I would say yes, just
Yeah.
because he can stretch the floor. Because they're both bangers. Other than that,
Yeah, I'd say
they
yes
use
as
their
well.
physicality a lot, but he's
But
just
I
can
think
shoot.
Steven Adams plays his role probably the best out of any other player in the NBA. As far as like what is your role, what do you do best? He does it better than anybody. As far as being T Wolves are in poverty. Like Steven
Oh
Adams
my
is I think
gosh.
maybe the best pick and roll partner, just pick and roll, not pick and
Hmm.
pop. Like obviously AD, Giannis, but Steven Adams gets his guys open shots and easy assists, drop off passes better
He's
than
the perfect
anybody.
player for the Grizzlies
Yes,
with the way they space the
1000%.
floor. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts on last night? I know we basically covered it for the most part, but I guess Zach. Zach had a really good
He
first
did.
half and then just kind of disappeared a little bit in the second half. He basically was taking the same shots he was taking in the first half for his first two shots of the second half, if that makes sense. And they
Mhm.
didn't drop. And I think after that, kind of his confidence was down a little bit. And that kind of coincided of when the Trailblazers started to pull away. Because just looking at the numbers, I guess to give you guys a more just like a clear representative last night. So the first quarter, it was Portland 40, San Antonio 38. The second quarter, San Antonio 36, Portland 34. So that's why you had the tie at halftime. And then in the third quarter, it's 45-27 Portland over San Antonio. And that was the difference right there.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm. But if to go on a positive, Sohan played
Mhm.
phenomenal.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that because that actually was like I have some game notes and
Mhm.
that was the thing that like I wrote down. The thing that if one thing stood out the most to me in last night's game, it was Jeremy Sohan offensively. I mean, and defensively too, but
Yeah.
it was one of his better games of the season for sure.
I think I saw a stat in the first, 25 games or something, he averaged, 7 and 4 and, 2 assists on
Yep.
41% shooting, 17% from 3, and, 45 from the line. And then the past 10 games, 15 games, since changing to the one-handed free throw,
Right.
whatever that is, he's averaged 11, 5 boards, 4 assists on 49, uh, 33, and, 71, something like
Mhm.
that. I might get the numbers slightly wrong, plus or minus, whatever, but
But yeah.
he's turned it around offensively. He's finally feeling more comfortable. I think changing that one-handed free throw has pulled his elbow in, both on the free throw line and just taking jump shots in general. And I see him looking for his shot a little bit more finally. I know he'll occasionally miss a turnaround fadeaway jumper, and you're like, well, what was that? But I'm happy with him taking those shots. He took a hook shot last night, like a classic post up hook over Nurk, I'm pretty sure. So, him looking for his shot more, to me, is a huge plus because
Yeah.
at the beginning of the season, I think we were all a little bit afraid because of what happened to Ben Simmons and other guys when they're not hitting their shots early on. They just okay, I'm not going to shoot anymore. I'm fed up with it. But he has continued to shoot. So that just shows me
And
his
it's gotten
mentality.
better.
It's gotten better.
Specifically at least from deep. Like the
Hmm.
two shots he made last night, I know it's just two threes. But if you go watch those, the rotation on the ball, the way it landed, like in the hoop, like it definitely improvement shooting wise for Sohan in season, which we can go back to earlier in the year. You can run the tape back where I was referencing, Sean was saying, Sean Elliott is who I'm referencing. He was saying that, it's really tough to like improve a shot and change a shot
Yeah.
during the season. And while it's not completely different, you can tell that there's definitely been some tweaks. Which is just really positive signs going forward because if he can get a consistent jumper down, he is going to be a dangerous, versatile player. There's a a quote from Pop before the game last night that I sent you on Twitter, and he was just talking about how he believes Sohan can guard 1 through 5, can distribute. He's obviously made the point guard
Hmm.
comments, earlier in the year. So there's a lot of belief in him, and as the season's gone on, I can really see it. Obviously, we're biased being Spurs fans, but at the same time, we've definitely seen his development throughout the year.
I continue to be excited to eventually see him, Malachi, and Blake Wesley on the court together because I think everyone's
Hmm.
forgotten about Blake Wesley. I know he only had 3 games under his belt before he got injured, but he
Yep.
looked great
Yep.
and he's finally starting to get a little bit of a groove in the G League. I know he's still a little bit inefficient, maybe a little turnover prone, but we knew these were going to be issues when we drafted him as high as we did. Uh, but I'm really excited about his upside. And then Malachi has also come along slowly, looking more comfortable as well, aggressive, getting to the basket, which is a change of things. He's not settling as much for that mid-range jumper, even though that still is something that is in his wheelhouse. He just looks also on another level than he did at the beginning of the season. So super exciting 3 young players that we can eventually put next to Keldon and Devin, who hasn't even been playing. I forget that we're
Right.
still being competitive
There's a lot of games we would win with him in
theoretically,
theoretically.
hopefully. So
Yep. Well, while you were talking about Blake Wesley, I went ahead and checked out the last Austin
Mm,
Spurs game where the Ontario Clippers, Ethan, they got their revenge. They beat the Austin Spurs 115 to
rivalry.
82 in Cedar Park. Rivalry for sure. Yeah, Kawhi called him
Mm,
up and he was like, "Hey, we lost that. We need to be undefeated against
mhm.
these guys at all levels." Um, yeah, their whole roster went crazy, but in spite of the Spurs not having a good game, there were some good things we saw from Blake Wesley and Dominic Barlow. More Dominic Barlow than Blake Wesley. The only thing with Blake is just 5 for 17. That's the inefficiency we've talked about. He found a way to get to the line a couple times, ended up with 14. Didn't distribute very much, had 2 steals, did shoot 1 for 2 from 3. So with him, it's just efficiency, but still found a way to get up to around 15 points, even on a bad shooting night. But Dominic Barlow continues to go for 2 from 3, but 9 for 14 overall, had 18, 5 boards, and an assist. So love to see that from Dominic Barlow. And just with these impending trades, and Eric talks about it a little bit here, when you were talking about those 3 young guys, hopefully after the deadline, I wonder if Dom Barlow, because he's kind of a forgotten rookie, I wonder if he gets some minutes kind of at the end of the year. That's kind of what I was
Mm,
anticipating, but it's kind of coinciding now with not only just the tank, but with his progression in the G League to where it's like you can actually put him on the floor. But I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the trade deadline because it's like we still have so many fours. Like
I
Roby's still
know.
on the roster, and it's like at that point, Pop's probably like, let's just give minutes to him and let Barlow continue to develop in the G League. I think we definitely will see at least some spot minutes from him on the NBA roster after the deadline, but I don't know if it's like as much as maybe we we would like just because of kind of the logjam at the 4.
Yeah, and KBD and
Right.
Stanley Johnson.
Yep,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, I just don't know.
I'd love to see him on the floor, but I have no
Me
problem
too.
with him continuing in Austin. It really, it's no big deal. But in terms of Blake Wesley, I think we will definitely see him
Mhm.
after the deadline for sure. And I think his production will actually go up when he gets to the
Mhm.
NBA. Maybe not production, but his inefficiency will go down because of that leash of like this game has more weight to it. Coach Popovich is on the sideline rather than whoever the G League coach is. So if I mess up or if I throw the ball away, that has a little bit more like stakes to it. So
Uh-huh.
Spurs 49 and 33 was that
We're
is
winning
our
out,
record?
Ethan. Yeah, by the end of the
Oh,
year.
no. Maybe sure. I like the way you're thinking, Rain. I like the way you're thinking from this point on. Uh, but let's talk about the deadline because we've had a few
Yes.
trade rumors going around. There's some 3-team deals rumored with a mystery team involved with us and the Raptors apparently, where we would be giving them Jakob Pertl, obviously getting some kind of draft capital back. Gary Trent's involved. Not sure if he's
Mhm.
coming back to San Antonio or going to the mystery third team.
Yeah.
Um, but evidently, we are shopping Jakob Pertl, so that's news.
Well, and also the thing about that team trade specifically, the reason why they're having to get another team involved is to compensate the Spurs with 2 first-round draft picks. So the
Mm,
fact that like that might be a possibility, we were
yeah.
talking about that and we were thinking, that's probably not going to work, even though that's what they were demanding. If they can end up pulling it off in a 3-team trade where like, somebody gets Gary Trent and that first-round pick
Mm,
goes to us, where we get the 2, great. I didn't even think of that as a possibility, but I should have. Like now that that's being discussed, it's like that's
yeah.
probably the most realistic way we're able to get 2 first rounders.
I'm curious. Somebody mentioned it in a comment earlier. Does that 3-team deal also include either or and or whatever it is, Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott as
Mhm.
well? Um,
I think that yeah. So that was H to the Dizzle or Hizzle.
H
we
to
ap-
his
we appreciate you, my guy. I saw the other comment as well. And he was talking about Lakers rumors, but regardless,
mm,
that could still potentially be in this trade as well. We know that the 3 most tradable guys on the team are our 3 vets, which are Jakob, J. Rich, and Doug.
with Doug playing the way he's been playing the past couple of games, he's
Oh my
finally
gosh! Last
upping that.
night,
Yeah, 3 for 3 from 3-point land, and one was
in people's faces too.
yeah,
Right.
tough shots moving off
Mhm.
screens, not just like standing in the corner, which is the kind of
Yep.
shots he'd get if he were to play with I don't know LeBron James maybe I don't know.
Just anybody.
Yeah, pretty much
Anybody with
anybody that can
star
draw
power.
2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. Mm,
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, like we were just saying, those are the three guys that it seems are the most involved. Um, but yeah, especially if we're gonna if Jay Rich and McDermott are if like that Westbrook trade comes to fruition. I don't think that it necessarily will, but I did see today on Twitter, like, and I know how that can be. We'll see how
yeah.
true it is. But at the same time, this is something that's kind of been, festering. Even in the offseason, there were conversations about this, and it was like the Spurs were still having conversations about this. And it's still kind of interesting to me because he's like playing really well as their sixth man right now. I
Hmm.
mean, I get you want to get out of the cap situation that they're in,
Yeah.
and they're not going to win the championship this year anyway. So I do, if you're playing long term and trying to like build the best roster around LeBron and AD for next year, I understand it there. Which the more I think about it, that's probably what they're doing. Um, but I definitely, if we're including like Jay Rich or Doug, like one of the other, then I think like the first round pick, 2 first round picks thing is very like justified. If it's just Jakob, I can understand. Like, it's great that it looks like we're figuring out a way to potentially do that. But if it's those guys, then I totally understand. If it's Jakob and Doug, or Jakob and Jay Rich, or all three, then I definitely agree. I'd want to, and I feel like that would be reasonable.
I'm curious if we would buy out Russ or not, because
Yeah,
he's made it very clear that he doesn't want to be bought out. I know that's only maybe something that he's saying so he doesn't get traded, uh,
but
but
like, does he want to play in San Antonio?
that's
I
also
don't
the
think he
thing.
does. Yeah,
But
not
but
on
ma
this team.
but maybe he would, because the big complaint with Russ is that he doesn't care about winning, he just cares about getting his stats. So, this would be a perfect place for him to just get stats and lose, right? So,
We
maybe
do
he
need
would.
another guard.
We need a point guard technically right now, right?
uh, but like, then he'd take minutes away from Wesley, and
Yeah.
if that's in the
Yeah.
plans, which is what we were talking about, then I think the buyout becomes more realistic. I know,
Mhm.
like you were saying, I guess there's some. I haven't seen that, but that would make sense just knowing Russ. Um, but I think that, yeah, with Blake Wesley looming, I feel like if we trade for him, we're going to buy him out.
I find it also just very difficult to believe that they are going to trade him because of how well he's
Yeah,
been
I
playing
don't
the
think
past
that
few games.
happens.
He's on a six man of the year candidate. So, like, he's on another tear right now. And if
Uh
they can
huh.
find a way to get now I feel like I'm a Lakers GM. If they can find a way to get Jay Rich and or Doug McDermott and keep Russell Westbrook at the same time, that's a huge win. Now they'd probably have to definitely give up that first that they've been holding on to. And we'd only get one first for the both of them. I'd be totally fine with that. But that would really round out their roster, because I'm a huge fan of their Rui Hachimura acquisition. I think he has a lot
I
of
like that
upside.
too.
He's a 6'9" big. He can play 3 or 4 basically. He can guard, I don't know about ones, but 2 through 4 for the most part, and he's a knockdown shooter. And he's only 23, so
And this is the most talent he'll ever have had around him. So
1000%.
his job should be the easiest it should. I mean, it's still the Lakers, but like, still.
Yeah. There's really nobody in front of him either. I mean, LeBron's
Mm-hmm.
kind of playing the 4 right now, but he really wants to be playing 3 when AD gets back. Will they play AD at the 4 with Thomas
Mm-hmm.
Bryant at the 5, and then bring him in off the bench with Russ to kind of be that dynamic duo, maybe pick and roll partner? Who knows? But the Lakers hope. I mean, I'm kind of a Lakers fan. I hate to break it to everybody else, but I'm not a fan of LeBron James, uh, but yeah, hopefully we're able to get a first from them if we can.
Speaking of that, we play them tomorrow. So I'll be
Mm.
up late for that, seeing what happens there, watching LeBron probably go crazy.
Rui
Um,
dropped 30.
right. Rui, just complete explosion
Mm.
game
One of the
debut.
many Kawhi Leonard comparisons on draft night, by the way.
That's crazy to think
Yeah.
about. Um, God bless him. I hope he reaches his potential, but that's just wild looking back
Mm.
on it. But when you were talking about the Lakers, the more I was thinking about, if we do end up making a deal with them, I think Jay Rich is more likely than Doug if
I
they
think so
keep
too.
Russ, just because his contract is half the price of
Do,
Doug's.
the Lakers don't have any seconds anymore, though, right? They gave them all up.
I
Pretty
don't
sure they
even
gave
know.
them all away to get
That
Rui.
probably
Because there was also a
over
rumor
the
going around
years.
that the Spurs they cut their price for Jay Rich down to 2 second-round picks,
Hmm.
rather than, I think they were trying to get one for him, but now it's just 2 seconds, which I think is way more likely. But I don't know if the Lakers even have 2 seconds at this point. They've been just dishing out their picks right and left.
3-team trade. Get the
There
picks
we
from
go.
somewhere.
There we go.
Oh my gosh. Any other thoughts on the trade deadline and maybe some other potential things in Spurs world, Ethan?
It's going to be an exciting couple of weeks. Next couple of weeks. Every time I hear a Woj bomb go off, my heart stops a little bit. Looking for the like Spurs of the first couple of words. I'm like,
Hey
please.
man, after Derek last year, we believed it's
Yeah,
possible. It's like now we're expecting it,
I think
which is
something will go
weird.
down. I don't know
We'll
if
make
all
a move.
three. Yeah, we'll make something happen. Somebody will be moved. I don't know. One of the three vets for sure.
Yeah. We'll have to see. We'll have to see, Ethan. Well, any final thoughts on this episode before we wrap up this SSPN live?
Go Spurs, go! Let's keep losing, but keeping it entertaining and competitive.
Wembenyama odds up every L.
Mm,
Just remember that. Or Scoot or Eamon Thompson. Lots of
yeah,
talented players. Watch a little bit of college basketball when you get a chance. I know it's hard, but like if there's a top player on, like
I
just
know
try
it's
to tune
hard.
in. Like tune in. Even though Keontae George didn't have a good game last night, but like ideally, Kansas Baylor, there's some talent there.
Yeah.
It'll give you something to do sometimes. We appreciate y'all. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. You can watch the show there, but you can also watch and hang out in the comments with us on here at SSPN on YT, at Jude McLaren, at Ethan _Quintero. And that's where you can. Are you mad that I messed up?
No, I'm all right.
It's okay. It
Like,
just hurts. You're not mad. You're just disappointed.
exactly. You get it.
Right. But if you follow Ethan and myself, you could stay updated with the show. We appreciate y'all. We'll catch y'all in the next one, and we'll see y'all later.